Consciousness, the final frontier. These are the voyages into the universe between your ears. Our mission, to explore collective wisdom, seek out amazing secrets, and spread the message of personal potential.
All right, hello, good evening, good morning. Wherever you are, whatever time you're watching this, listening to this, I am Tim C. Starr. I'm your host for this episode of The Universe Between Your Ears, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mr. Gabi Musheyev.
Hello to everyone. Great to be here again. Thanks, team.
Good to have you here, sir. And we've got a fun guest here with us today, Dr. Adam McBride. Why don't I tell you a little bit about Adam before we let him take over the conversation?
There was a movie, Something About Adam. It was a charming movie. Have you watched that?
I don't think that's Adam. But
so this one guy, charming Adam, and their three sisters fall in love with him. And he just got something. I don't know. It's an amazing, anyway. Just
maybe it's your life story, Adam. We'll find out.
I'll take it off the podcast.
All right. So let's get the housekeeping out of the way here. Tell people who the heck you are, and then we'll get into this. Adam is a chiropractor. He got his Bachelor of Science in Health and Exercise Science / Kinesiology from Syracuse University. He got his doctorate in chiropractic from Life University. He's worked in personal fitness training, physical therapy, hospital clinics, including cardiology and orthopedics. He uses various treatments, various approaches in his treatments, working with people, many of which have basis in applied kinesiology. And really what he's after is find out what the root causes are in patients that are contributing to their issues when he sees them. There's a lot more to this, including diet and mindset and things, and the whole mind-body connection. And this really is kind of how he came to be invited to be on the show, because we had a conversation that came around to this. And so we wanted to dig a little deeper. He's active in martial arts, so we're not going to mess with him. He surfs, he hikes, reads. He's done bodybuilding. His wife is studying to become a naturopathic physician. So I'm surprised you have time to talk to us, Adam. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. So let's talk about how you provide your services, because I thought that was kind of cool.
Sure.
You have, I think, from two different aspects. You have one portion of your business is a more traditional come to the office and see the chiropractor. But the interesting part is the concierge version of things, right? You want to talk about that for us first?
Yeah, sure. So I have actually been working at a clinic. It's called San Diego Chiropractic Group. They're located in Claremont of San Diego. And I actually started on as an intern through my school's program, which we had to do an internship and gain credit for it. And I was lucky enough to actually be offered a job actually the second to last day of that internship. So upon getting licensing as well as any kind of training I basically needed for that, I got to get started. And I've been there for the last 2.5 years working as an independent contractor / associate through them. And just recently, I've gained enough of the skill set that I know exactly how I would like to run a practice. And now with the nature of everything going mobile, regarding whether it be Amazon, whether it be your groceries, etc., I figured this would be a great opportunity to get started in the mobile chiropractic house call type of service. And I wanted to design this model around just the individual person, not so much around like a time schedule that they have to worry about, like taking time from their schedule to get off work or time to take care of the kids. And I felt that this would be a perfect model to start off in this new kind of generation we're going into, about helping people as they need to be helped and devoting the time, patience, effort, and most importantly, quality to them in that regard.
I like the idea. I mean, it's it's interesting how a lot of things come sort of full circle. They start out in one way, and that goes away for various reasons, and then comes back around. So this goes back to the old school method of the doctors making house calls.
Exactly.
And helping people. What's popping into my head here is it avoids, or that would avoid them coming to the office and picking up more crap from the other people that are sitting around waiting in the office, the waiting room. He can just deal with whatever they're dealing with. So I like the throwback to that, which it's like a physical therapist's been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
And other.
My own mother, she had actually had a knee surgery, and I didn't even know that they had physical therapists that actually came to her to actually do the rehabilitation work with her, and she loved it. So
yeah, it's so much more convenient, to have it in your house.
Absolutely. You don't have to worry about lines. You don't have to worry about like insurance issues, about having to go to a particular doctor. Like, I'm here for the individual, and we work as a team, because we don't do any of the healing. The person does the healing. All we do is provide just a guide to get them on the track to heal properly. And not only that, but finding exactly what is causing their dysfunctions to begin with.
Right.
So,
well, let's go down that path, because the show is, as I mentioned earlier, the show is, at least in theory, we're sort of mindset based, and we really want to give people things to think about that they can turn around and put to use. And so the whole, the mind body connection idea is something that I think virtually everybody, if you mention that to them, they're going to go, oh yeah, of course. But then asking them to describe how it really works, then you might find out that they really don't have a clue.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think the three of us sitting here probably would agree that it's an important thing that, that they can't be separated. But since you're the expert here on this, let's let you expand on that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, we can go back to a very fundamental concept of just being an athlete. So I was an athlete all throughout my youth, and I participated in track and field. I was a wrestler. I had played basketball for a number of years. And when you speak about mind body, it really comes to the essence of how you needed to perform certain skills and have those kinds of motor abilities in order to be able to provide those skills to either help a team or just help yourself in a competition atmosphere. And I mean, whether it be just like how you hold a basketball and how you do a follow through when you do a free throw shot, in wrestling, how it would be to like essentially do a double leg takedown or get out of a pinfall. It would be a lot of those connections that you'd have to make in just a multi-planar dimensional view if you think about it. Because oftentimes what we're seeing now, which is becoming a big issue, is how many youth sports injuries are actually that are happening at the moment. And this is because they specialize in sports. They specialize in one particular sport. And in this regard, this actually leads to not only burnout, but this leads to them working in just one plane of motion most of the time. So when you do that, you don't incorporate so many other different types of aspects that work different aspects of your brain. And regarding that, I've learned that even in later sports I did in my life when I did bodybuilding, about how I needed to like perfectly symmetrically build myself. And not only that, but how did I contract certain muscles in order to actually show the judges like in a perfect type of way regarding just how I would actually want to be shown as like a bigger individual when I was actually at my weakest and actually thinnest at the time of competition. And I'm learning a lot about that right now, because recently I started Kung Fu, and it's all about how you actually move your guards properly, or how you actually station your hips so you can actually be at a firm foundation to actually prepare for attack or prepare for a kick or prepare for a block. And this whole mind-body connection, I learned really through sports, and hence why I wanted to learn more about kinesiology in college. And we learned about how your body functions in regards to respiratory mechanics, in regards to skeletal muscle, in regards to the nervous system. And that led me into a number of different aspects. I wanted to learn about personal training and learn about orthopedics. And I really fell in love with chiropractic after having an incident where I actually injured my neck in a wrestling camp back when I was about 15 years old. And after taking like Advil and after taking like a number of different like ice packs and heating packs in my neck, just getting no relief, my mom's like, okay, you know what, we're gonna take you to the chiropractor. And I'm really scared at this point, thinking like, oh, all I've heard about is like the cracking, and, like how like that didn't fit well with me at that time. And luckily for me, the chiropractor I'd seen, he was also a wrestler in high school, so he knew exactly what I was dealing with at that time. So he does a couple soft tissue things to relieve like some tension in my neck, and then just I'm like, okay, I've been in pain for the last 3 days. This is a sigh of relief. And about 2 more sessions, I went to him just to make sure everything was fine, and I'm 100% after this. I mean, mind you, I definitely had youth on my side, and that plays a big role in the healing process. But when I got to talking with him, he would say like, oh, these are the mechanics you need to work on, and this is what you have to do. And that was my first introduction to chiropractic ever. I loved it right away. I still wanted to explore different areas of study going farther in my career when I was in college. And I actually thought about physical therapy for a long time. And I actually had worked in a couple clinics just doing just the basic rehabilitative work, doing what are called SOAP notes. And I still felt that there was a little more autonomy that chiropractors could offer. And just in working with the body, for me, it was just very simple that better structure is always going to equal better functioning. And it's all about how the brain communicates with the rest of the body. And then this can relate into how our body physically performs and what physical challenges we have. This can relate to chemically, essentially what kind of gas do you put in the gas tank? Because if you're putting a lot of sugar in your own gas tank, you're not going to be feeling the way that you want to feel in like an optimal manner. And then later on in my career, actually only in the last couple of years or so, I've learned about just the emotional, mental component about how pain can not only be just a physiological representation, but just the events we have in our life that transpire also can lead into those aspects of how we hold our emotions in as physical forms of pain. And I've actually been working with a technique right now called neuro-emotional technique, or NET, which evaluates the conditioned responses that we have to stress stimuli regarding an event that transpires in our life and how it relates to different muscles that we have. So I know this is a mouthful, but I got
a ton of stuff in there. All right, so there were a couple of things that, 3 or 4 things that you said that made me want to jump in on. The idea that you need, there's more to working. Okay, let's go with the idea of somebody who's participating in one sport and they train in one way and develop a kind of a single, let's say they develop a body style that works for a single function.
Yeah, like a plane of movement or something.
Yeah, and if they had to change sports and go into something very different, they're kind of behind the 8 ball because they're not the stuff that really would contribute to them being good at that sport. They haven't been working on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That made me think of the idea of in bodybuilding. You see pictures all the time on the internet. If you will look for guys who spend all their time on their upper body and their legs look like they're birds. And it made me think of the idea of CrossFit and how that for some people is a much better idea of training the whole body with different kinds of exercise, not just the repeating of the same thing over and over. All of these things kind of work together. And then, God, there were so many things. So the mental aspect of all of these things, I think I've talked about this on the show before, but I used to play tennis with a friend of mine who would beat me regularly. I think in all the times we played, I think I beat him once. And it wasn't that he was necessarily that much better than me, but he had his mental focus. It was much more important to him to win than it was to me. And so he latches onto it like a dog on a bone. Yeah. And he doesn't know how to not compete. Yeah. He can't play for fun.
I can relate.
And so my thing became, I'm just going to make him work hard, and I got my enjoyment out of that. Force him to run all over the place.
Okay, you probably made him better. So
huh? Oh, I'm sure it made him better. Yeah. So, Yeah, Gabby, I know you're. Are you just gonna soak it in, or you want to jump in here on any of this?
Yeah.
Or
No, I wanted you to finish your thought.
I
Absolutely.
may not ever be done, so let's jump in.
Yeah. Well, as you were describing this, Adam, I was always thinking, because just like you, I identified with you. I was scared of chiropractors, right? And I always wondered, and maybe because you're an insider to this, right? I mean, in order to do the right move and put that unaligned bone or whatever, or joint or whatever in place, right? You need to have a great deal of practice before you get it right, right?
Absolutely.
So what are they practicing on other patients? Where do they practice?
I'll start off by saying I was used as a human model toy, like I guess to work on while I was in my student clinic. So the way that our program was governed, rather, I guess that's the word you could say, was as a first quarter student, you'd participate as a patient in the student clinic, which were higher up quarter patients, or higher quarter up clinicians, so other students. So the first quarter I went, I mean, a lot of the time, like the woman would just be down there being like, okay, did I get it? And kind of. Like, you want to be nice and you want to encourage them, but at the same time, I mean, just your body definitely takes a lot of wear and tear from it. But we go through a number of different studies in regards to just research that's evidence-based. We go through a lot of different techniques, and there's over 100 different techniques within chiropractic alone. So if you went to one chiropractor, you could go to 100 different chiropractors, and you're not going to have the same experience. It's just not going to happen, because our profession is very much in regard of like the same kind of mission, but in a different way to get to that destination. So we had to practice on each other a lot. So we do a number of skill sets that they build you into it. We do what was called a motion palpation class, where we actually feel like the different muscles and different joints of the body. And then we have the person go into a certain motion so you can actually feel how the joint correctly moves. And that's in the beginning quarters. Mind you, during this entire time, we're having this virtually the same kind of curriculum that a medical student would have by learning the basic sciences of immunology, of biology, of human anatomy, of physiology. And when we learn about all those different concepts with what we do within a clinical setting, what we basically gauge is like, okay, like here's the research and here's the reading and here's everything that you need to know about something. Okay, now put it in perspective. And the whole first half of our education was really just about learning the basics of sciences. So, I mean, we were really grinded hard. I mean, there's many late nights that I put into studying for another 8 exams I had in a week or something like that. Wouldn't be uncommon to have that in school. But yeah, we would practice on each other. We'd learn through different seminars that would come around. And I always tried doing at least like one new seminar per quarter that I was there. Just even if it was a technique I knew I was never really going to use, it would still just be good just to learn about the information that was presented, because then you can kind of cross-reference it with what some other person has as a philosophy.
Yeah. It was amazing. I used a couple of chiropractors, and the level of confidence that they were emitting before doing this, what I felt risky moves, and it was like, wow, I mean, if you don't push it in the right direction, I might just end up,
punchback. Yeah.
I mean, something terrible could happen. I heard some terrible stories, anyways. But but it will. I mean, for me personally, it was always like, what am I receiving? Do I see the vibration of confidence, and almost like a good mechanic, knows what he's doing. Like he knows everything.
And you'll feel that too.
Yeah, you feel that in the vibration, right?
Absolutely. You'll genuinely feel like the person's energy.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you this as an example. So we had what was called reciprocal, meaning that if I was a student clinician in the student clinic seeing patients, which were other students in the school, if there was another student clinician, we could actually trade services for each other. So we'd adjust each other and take care of each other's basic health history, examinations, and so forth. And my first experience with my reciprocal, I could just feel him like putting his hand just on my neck and just feeling like,
Mm.
no, okay.
Nothing but confidence.
Yeah, and it's like you feel that, and I'm just like, oh boy, this is gonna be a long quarter. Just learning.
I had a haircut like that. I mean, this guy was like, I don't know where he came from. He's straight out of school, and he was shaking. My hair is easy to cut, right? It's like shaver, and he was just shaking. I don't know what the hell was wrong, but it was the worst haircut I've ever received. And every time he kept, he trying to fix what he just made it worse.
Oh,
and eventually I just told him, stop. No more. Stop. You're done.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait until she's finished with that customer, and then she's going to fix it.
I get that. I mean, just expression like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And I remember even like the first neck adjustment I ever did was during a club where I was being supervised by the doctor who was actually what's the word? The chaperone of the club, as well as like 3 different upper level students and upper quarter students. And I just remember like my buddy goes, yeah, you can adjust my neck. And he was a good friend of mine. And I just was like, oh, are you sure? I mean, I've never done it before. And I'm like, so you do this, this, and this, right? And I checked with like 3 different people before I did the move. And then as soon as I actually did the adjustment just on his second cervical vertebrae, it was like nearly like perfect. But it was just funny because like I remember talking to the other students and they're like, that was really good. I'm like, well, yeah, I had to like confirm like 3 different times with you guys just because I don't want to mess it up. Because like the most embarrassing thing for me would be just to doing that in front of a large crowd that we had, because we naturally had all these different clubs that were on campus that we would learn about different styles of how to adjust and different ways of placing hands, and you could really work on your techniques and skills. And I felt that sometimes was more important than just doing the studying, which you'd have to do. Not saying it's any less important than not be doing the studying. I think that has its own merits, but you need to know that you're mostly going to be seeing people, and they're not going to be caring about biochemistry. They're going to be caring like, oh, can you fix me? Can you get me out of pain? Or can you get me a better functioning ability?
Theory is important, but it's the practical application that matters, right?
Exactly. And I mean, philosophy plays a large part of how to explain it, because even the term physician actually means teacher. So I put a big emphasis on education for my patients, whether it be for food or whether it be for ergonomics at their own desk that they sit at all day, or whether it be for different types of movement or rehab that they want to do, or even just different gym moves. Like I even saw a woman today that she was just like, oh yeah, like my shoulder pain keeps coming back, but I've been doing a lot of lifting. I'm like, okay, how are you lifting? So she'd be like, oh, well, like this. I'm like, okay. I'm like, try this. Spread your feet just a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. Now do that. So in the interim, what I was doing was I was just rubbing like just different parts, being like, is that tender? Just to give them an idea that it's a whole body strain. It's not just you moving your legs. It's your whole body's taking the compensation force of that, because everything's connected.
Yeah. Like
I have so many different patients that'll come in and be like, my lower back's been bothering me, but is my big toe related to it? I'm like, yeah, it's all connected to you. So.
Well, let's talk about the mental aspect of this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that a person could be going to the best doctor, right? The best healer, whatever label you want to put on it, and in whatever category that you want. They could be the best in the country. And they could go and be treated and still end up not being fixed, potentially being worse, simply because they don't believe that it's going to fix them, or they're just convinced that it doesn't, I'll just leave it at that statement. They don't believe that it's going to fix them.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing can fix them. All right. And so they may, like, you go to a chiropractor and I got a stiff neck, and they don't believe in chiropractic. They think it's hokey, and they may walk out of the office feeling better, but the next morning it's back. Right. There are people who just are like, their mindset is, I'm never healthy. Right. I've been sick all my life. There's always something wrong. Doctors can't fix it. They don't know what it is. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, when I look at the body's state of health from just that physical, chemical, as well as emotional standpoint, one's going to affect the other no matter what. And as you just said, I mean, they could get their neck adjusted and just feel better genuinely. But if we're not taking care of like what's actually causing that, because they may have gone and slept on a bad pillow, they may have gotten in an argument with somebody, they may have a bone in their foot that hasn't been adjusted, and if they keep walking on that, that's going to cause a cascade of different compensations to their body to occur. So it's a number of different things that we have to look at. And that's why the history is always the most important regarding any patient that comes in. I'll be honest, there's times that I've actually had patients where I've taken the history, even if it was just a neck pain type of thing, and yeah, they could have a bad posture. Yeah, they could have age being a factor of like them not doing well. Yeah, it could be their job. But we always got to keep those red flags in concern. I got another story regarding that. I had a patient that she had neck pain, and she was just coming with basic neck pain. So she was in her 60s, I believe. But in going through just my basics of what I was going through in the history, I was like, oh, you're getting headaches? Yeah. Oh, where are you getting them? Oh, behind the eye. I'm like, okay. Okay. Have you had any major weight loss in the last 5 months that's not been on your own efforts? And she goes, yes. And I go, okay, how much? She's like, yeah, I lost about like 25 pounds in the last like 3 weeks. And I was like, okay, that's a lot. And she wasn't even trying for this. And then there was a couple other things that came up as well, like pain at night. She had some urinary difficulty, and she also had a history of cancer in the past. So automatically, I'm not trying to think about going in the way of saying, oh, she's definitely got cancer, because that's not my job. Chiropractors do not diagnose conditions. We diagnose like segments of the body that are causing certain conditions to be present. So like I would always say, like, I'm not treating the cancer in the patient, I'm treating the patient with cancer. Mm-hmm. And in this regard, I referred her out because right away I was like, we need to get some blood tests. And I had taken the x-ray of just her neck just to see if there's anything major that I could see from that kind of perspective. And I actually had referred her to her primary care saying, yeah, take the CD, go see him, go get some blood tests, and see what else is needed. And here's how the medical system is in this country at this moment. I won't go into too much of a detail about this, but I call back the woman the next day saying, hey, how's everything feeling? Okay, I went to the doctor. Okay, what did he say? He referred me for physical therapy. I'm like, this is not a physical therapy situation. Like, I'm okay with physical therapists. I love physical therapists, but this is not needed in that scope of practice. I'm like, please go get some blood tests. So I tried calling her back about a week later after that. Never heard from her. Months go by. I don't hear from her. I then have a patient who originally referred this person in to me, and she goes, hey, nice job on the person's name. I'm like, oh, yeah, what happened with that, by the way? She had a pituitary tumor that she had to get removed. And it was putting pressure on her eye, which was causing her not to see well. So that was the eyesight issue, which was also the headache issue. And because of the fact that she had pain at night, that is a huge red flag for any type of malignant issue going on in your body. And had I not taken the time in my studies to actually know about these red flag symptoms, as well as taking a history that could encompass that, that would have never given me the idea. I could have just adjusted her neck, and just months have gone by, and yeah, she gets cancer. And then who's the first person they're going to come after? Because I didn't do the proper scope of what she needed in terms of primary care. So we always got to think about that when we're working on anybody in our field, because sometimes I'll tell people chiropractic can help anything, but it cannot help everything. And you need to know when to kind of take the own ego out of that and just say, this is beyond the limit of my abilities. Here's who you need to see. Mm-hmm. We got to make sure we know how to do that. And that's every profession, not just my own, but especially for chiropractic.
I have a quick question for you, Adam. Regarding, strenuous physical activity, for example, I have been running for as long as I know, right? But at some point after 40s, I started gaining weight.
Okay.
Nothing changed. I kept the same level of exercise. I guess my metabolism was slowing down. and I needed to change my diet and adjust right accordingly. In any case, I got in control of that. But a few injuries happened, and I think I came across some materials where people were advised to stop running because they were putting a lot of weight on their joints and wearing them out. And so instead of dropping your weight on your joints, the suggestion was, okay, just do walking, and that should be sufficient. What's your take on that, as far from the chiropractor's point of view?
So regarding running, I used to be a runner when I was younger, and I personally stopped doing it because it was bothering my knees. But how's the best way to answer this? I guess I could take this from perspective of how even my father had been. He used to be an avid runner. He actually ran the Montreal Marathon and the Boston Marathon back in the 80s, in the same year actually. And he always ran the road races that we had every year. He was a constant runner. But then just one day, his knees happened to just start getting worn down. He was also a carpenter, so that played a significant role in that as well. But just from this overuse of this, there might have been just a ankle or even a hip dysfunction that it wasn't moving properly. And this could have been a potential cause of what he's been having, because he's had lower back pain in the past, and that can relate to pelvis asymmetries. And that could be part of what's going on here. As I said, there could be muscles that aren't firing correctly. So, for example, the muscle that's on the side of your leg right here, right above your pelvis, called the gluteus medius.
Yeah.
It plays a big role in not only stability of the knee, but it plays a big role in the stability of the pelvis as well. You'll see a lot of runners have one side of their glute medius on either the right or the left be not firing properly, and that will cause some shift in the pelvis. So therefore, one side's being a lot more dominant.
Mm-hmm.
This can lead to a whole host of other issues where your feet, if they're not dorsiflexing and plantar flexing as they need to be, then that can be a factor, because then you're taking a half step less than you actually could.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another aspect. There could be the surface ground that you are on. There could be the proper arch support that you might not have. There could be even a fuel issue of how you're actually fueling your body, and maybe you're feeling the inflammation characteristic come on a lot more. There could be muscles that are overfiring within your groin that have been essentially firing too much, and that's taking pressure off the hips, and that's why there could actually be either one hip that's higher, or essentially that's causing lower back pain. So for yourself, yes, metabolism as we age, as we know, slows down, so that can definitely be one issue. So therefore, we make sure we need to either supplement or have different dietary regulations for ourselves. So once again, this can come from many different perspectives. For the case of yours, how much do you run currently? Let me ask you that.
Well, I'm trying to do a few miles every day, and usually I would go, not very fast, but nice pace. Not I see some runners passing by and they're like, "What's your problem, man?" I enjoy it. Very, very determined. So yeah, but I feel so much high from it. I just come back absolutely different person. Nice hot shower, you come out a new person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, totally. As a matter of fact, one thing that I want to encourage anyone, especially guys who are doing office work, right after 40, do not give up. If you're not starting regular physical activity, you're just going to go down pretty quickly, right? It's just going to go down.
Absolutely.
So my father, just like yours, was an athlete. He was actually a sprinter. He was training. I remember it was in the Soviet Union, and they were training old style. They would tie the weights to their waists, and they would try to fire and go sprint. That's how they were trying to train for this a bullet like firing speed, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. They would tie like tires, you know, flat tires behind like a few of them. It was amazing. I got inspired by that. So yeah, but since the weight increased, I felt like, okay, I'm really dropping all this weight on my muscles, on my joints, right? And that couldn't be good, you know. And so I kind of started being mindful about that. Well, I don't know that, and I totally agree with you about some weakness in your core or any group of muscle that may result in all kinds of misalignments and displacements, and one group of muscle or joints is taking more work, you know, does harder work to compensate, right? And therefore is damaged because of that after a period of time, a long period of time, not doing the same thing, right? Yeah, so that's one thing. But you mentioned about proper diet, right?
Mhm.
Since recently, not for too long, as a matter of fact, I started looking into all those superfoods. I think in the recent years, there's been like a huge movement, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm starting to see stuff, and people are really doing a lot of blogging about that. It's amazing material. You're probably also involved with that, right?
Yes.
It's part of your whole system.
I got to get more working on my blog, but yes.
Yeah. What's your, like, I found like, I think maca, it's a interesting Peruvian powder that was amazing effect, energy, and it's just, there is a few guys who are claiming that they took, you know, the chemical composition of all those different things and were able to put it in just one bottle, and now they want us to just put this little, you know, maybe 2 or 3 teaspoons full of this powder every day, and you're going to be covered.
Yeah.
And what's your take on that? It's kind of like, it sounds really good because it's a sales pitch, right? But I'm just kind of a little bit, I don't know.
Yeah, I think overpromise, underdeliver.
Yeah.
Me personally, I've never tried maca, so I don't know. But I'll be honest, I have tried a number of different supplements. When I was in college, I would try everything that was in like GNC because I was trying to like put on muscle at the time, and I was like very much like bro science, I guess you can call it. So yeah, like got to get the protein, the creatine, glutamine, all that. But yeah, like when it comes to like any of the superfood type things, I mean, really, whatever works best for you. I mean, if you feel better from it, like go for it, more power to you. For myself, I've tried just to really change my own diet first before I would add supplements. I take a lot more of a different approach now. I try and go more like organic based and like local if I can. The superfoods that are out there, as I said, I'm like, I don't have a problem with them. I would definitely know the source of where these products are coming from. Definitely know any kind of like artificial sweeteners that might be in it, because that can have detrimental effects on just concentration, memory, and focus. And then other than that, it's really just, I try and go just what you can eat first. Like Jack LaLanne, for example, had always said, if man made it, don't eat it. And I even think to this day, almost like a decade later, or sorry, almost a century later, he like still has that same philosophy. And like now people are really starting to catch on. And he was like one of the first pioneers of that. Him and like the Braggs, who do like, you know, the apple cider vinegar that you see on the shelf. Yeah, like the first naturopaths, they were like in the same kind of boat of like just saying like, yeah, food first. And as was mentioned before, like things come in cycles. I mean, even Hippocrates said like, let food be thy medicine. And it's the same kind of thing. So any real processed foods or supplements or powders that are out there, I mean, do your research, see what you feel. The biggest thing is that there's no governing board on them. So like, it was part of like the Supplemental Control Act of 1990, where basically senators from Utah wanted to make sure that like if you wanted to make a product, you could put it right on the market right away without FDA approval or anything like that. Now the FDA only will take that product off the shelves if they find that there is some detrimental effect to people's health. Like, I think back in like 2003 or 2004, like ephedra. Remember ephedra?
Yeah.
Drug, but like people started getting like heart palpitations from it.
Yeah, I remember that. It was in the press. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was this other supplement called Jacked 3D, which was like this bodybuilding pre-workout supplement that people could take, and that would just make you tweak out. I'll be honest. So, you get on that.
The whole, when I was in my 20s, I was really into nutrition and was selling multi-level supplements and things, and luckily I found a company that was really, their focus was on teaching you what the heck you're dealing with. And there was a guy that he had polio. He was a star athlete in high school and stuff. And right out of high school, 18 years old, he gets hit with polio. He's 100% incapacitated, and was that way for 10, 12 years, something like that. Somewhere during that, and he married his high school sweetheart, like right out of school, and then he gets hit with this, and they stayed married, and somewhere along the line, somebody introduced them to Shackley products, and they started taking this, and he had all these stories about, like, he craved the protein powder, and he couldn't use his arms. Even when he got immobile, he couldn't use his arms, so he'd be sticking his face down in the can of protein powder. But he used to talk about, in the industry, the nutritional supplement industry is like any other industry. So many of these companies are just all focused on money. And what nobody in the public knows, right, just the simple things, is that like vitamin E has, I think there's 12 tocopherols, something like that. There's different pieces.
Yeah.
And it's real easy to separate out one, and then they combine it with like oil or something, correct, and sell it as vitamin E.
Correct.
And it is sort of, technically it's vitamin E, but you really need all of those things together in the right combination.
Exactly.
But, so they're selling this stuff to the public that, this is something that would normally just be thrown away. This would be garbage.
Right.
Oh, no, and so it's such a hard thing. Your advice is good, know the source, but there's a whole world of education that you've got to get.
There is.
To truly understand what you're putting in your mouth.
And people genuinely don't want to do that. People
hell no.
Easy solutions.
No. And it's a lot. It's not like, we can go read a couple articles on it and you'll be up to speed.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it.
We want to be told what to do, not told what to read.
Yeah. There's a different school. See, that's one thing about this. Like, public health, right? So whatever is available for the society that is responsible for its citizens, right? Of course, FDA controls the quality or whatever, right? But I think that, like, teaching the populace, the healthy eating practices and good nutrition, all of that, right? That's only happening now. I think the last decade or so, right? Yeah. We see now, I have a 12-year-old boy, and we see, like, for about 7 or 8 years now, the schools are starting to get local foods and replacing all those junk foods with like some interesting, healthy salads and other options, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's all happening.
I just have the feeling that's more of a Southern California kind of
maybe
mindset.
Maybe.
I think.
Have you heard that McDonald's is starting to offer some kind of gourmet burger? And some reviewers went there and they tried it, and they had tears in their eyes because comparing to the classic burger, you couldn't compare it, and so it's happening. But regarding nutrition and all of those things, right? I mean, you could try all kinds of things. If your mindset is negative, if you are not present, if you are constantly worrying about something, which this society is kind of very conducive, because you have so many irritators, right? The biggest one is financial insecurity. We know that financial insecurity is causing a lot of stress, right? So I mean, you gotta. I think that the one biggest thing that you could do for your health is achieve financial stability. To me, this is like number one. Number one. I mean, you could have a stressful job and you don't know what happens tomorrow or whatever, and you could be running and eating well or whatever. But if this one big irritator is still there, I think it's just sucking out all the whatever effort that you're doing. No?
It's interesting.
Go ahead, Adam. I see you're.
It's interesting you bring that up.
Yeah.
The way I talk to people about this is because we're always going to have stressors that are bothering the world, whatever they may be. It's how your body responds to those stressors around you that make the biggest difference in how you express your own health. So that's, again, part of like the therapy, the treatment that I do with my patients and getting them to be like okay with how to deal with their situations of daily living, whether it be financial, whether it be love or a relationship that they have with a family member, whether it be their job. Because there's many people out there who just hate their jobs.
Or lacking sense of purpose, no motivation. I mean, if you have no motivation, you have all those good things that you could do, but you just don't have a desire, and that's it. It's dead, right? Where do you get the desire from, right?
I mean,
from a good chiropractic.
That's not a question for a chiropractor. That's what we do, Tim, right?
But we're finally coming around to the mindset on this thing. So where I thought you were going was, the conversation that we had. I forget who we were talking to, and we started joking about just deciding that whatever I put in my body is going to feed me nutritionally, and you were talking about the cruise you were on.
Yeah.
He went on this cruise and just ate bacon and lost weight. And
okay,
I convinced myself that I was losing weight.
Just bought bigger shirts.
I was thinking mind over matter, right? If I actually think that I'm losing weight,
I more and more am really. I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. I don't care what you put in your body. If you decide that you're going to be sick, you're going to be sick.
Yeah.
And the other way around is true also. So, there's no one simple, just, do this and you're good, ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're in a day and age where, like, I remember having a conversation with my father, and I was like, we're living in, like, the most superficial generation since probably the Renaissance. Like, I mean, they had mirrors, and they were like, oh, wow, I am beautiful. And then we have, like, everybody taking selfies, and it's essentially the same thing. It's just a different generation. Again, things coming full cycle around again. And think about all the things that people are being fed through social media, through Instagram, through people spouting different philosophy on Twitter, through their friends on Facebook who they find maybe having these extraordinary lives, but you're just getting like a snapshot picture of what was going on, or a snapshot video, or a funny link that they posted. All these different things are influencing us more now than they ever have. And that definitely brings a mindset too. I mean, like, I didn't even want to touch on this subject, but...
Hi, this is Tim Starr. Thanks for joining me and Gabi on the universe between your ears. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us for a little while. And we'd like to see you again. So be sure to subscribe wherever it is you're consuming the podcast from, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever the hell else is out there. We want to see you again. We also want to hear from you. So let us know what you think of each episode. Let us know if you got an idea for a future episode that you think would be just killer. Absolutely, let us know. All right? Thanks again, and we will see you next time around.